Tom Brady has played for 23 seasons and tossed 727 passing touchdowns and counting, helping to cement his legacy as the GOAT, although he still couldn't defeat Eli Manning twice or Nick Foles in the Super Bowl. But let's have a look at who caught all of his touchdowns in chronological order. Special thanks to TomBradyTouchdowns.com for making most of this information very accessible. You should totally check it out, especially if you're big into data, sports data, and stuff like that. Now on to touchdown.
And now you have to find out about Kelvin, right?
In 2001, Brady threw 19 touchdowns. His first touchdown ever was to Terry Glenn. That season, he also threw touchdowns to Jermaine Wiggins, David Patton, Jermaine Wiggins, David Patton, Troy Brown, Kevin Falk, Mark Edwards, Troy Brown, Kevin Falk, David Patton, Antoine Smith, Troy Brown, Charles Johnson, Mark Edwards, Patrick Pass, Jermaine Wiggins, and David Patton, which was Brady's first Super Bowl touchdown. In 2002, he threw 28 to Christian Foria, Donald Hayes, Deion Branch, Cam Cleland, Deion Branch, Kevin Falk, Troy Brown, David Patton, Daniel Graham, Christian Foria, Mike Vrabel, David Patton, David Givens, which was his first NFL catch, Christian Foria, Antoine Smith, Kevin Falk, David Patton, Christian Foria, Troy Brown, David Patton, Donald Hayes, Christian Foria, Troy Brown. 2003, Brady threw 28 touchdowns to Christian Foria, Deion Branch, David Givens, Larry Centers, Troy Brown, David Givens, Troy Brown, which was a walk-off touchdown in overtime, Deion Branch, Daniel Graham, David Givens, Bethel Johnson, Daniel Graham, Derek Ward, Deion Branch, Daniel Graham, Troy Brown, David Givens, Daniel Graham, Bethel Johnson, Troy Brown, Brady's third touchdown on the day, David Givens, Bethel Johnson, David Givens, Deion Branch, David Givens, and Mike Vrabel, all touchdowns in Super Bowl 38. In 2004, Brady threw 33 touchdowns to Deion Branch, David Patton, Daniel Graham. Daniel Graham is second on the night. Daniel Graham again the next game. David Patton, Daniel Graham, David Givens, David Patton, David Givens, a lot of David. Mike Vrabel, Bethel Johnson, David Patton, Christian Foria, Deion Branch, David Patton, Christian Foria, Kevin Falk, Corey Dillon, Daniel Graham, Deion Branch, Mike Vrabel, Deion Branch, David Givens, David Givens, Super Bowl 39, Mike Vrabel also Super Bowl 39. In 2005, Brady threw 30 touchdowns. Deion Branch, Tim Dwight, Daniel Graham, Daniel Graham, Ben Watson, Bethel Johnson, David Givens, Deion Branch, Daniel Graham, Troy Brown, Ben Watson, Deion Branch, Mike Vrabel, Andre Davis, Christian Foria, Troy Brown, Tom Asworth, David Givens, Corey Dillon, Mike Vrabel, his second touchdown in a row on that day. Deion Branch, Troy Brown, David Givens, Ben Watson, and David Givens. In 2006, Brady threw 29 touchdowns to Troy Brown, Kevin Falk, Chad Jackson, Doug Gabriel, Daniel Graham, Troy Brown, Heath Evans, Chad Jackson, Doug Gabriel, Rishi Caldwell, Ben Watson, Troy Brown, Chad Johnson, Richie Caldwell, Daniel Graham, Richie Caldwell, Ben Watson, Lawrence Maroney, Ben Watson, Kevin Falk, Jabbar Gaffney, David Thomas, Richie Caldwell, Daniel Graham, Kevin Falk, Jabbar Gaffney, Richie Caldwell, and Jabbar Gaffney. In 2000, Brady threw 56 touchdowns to Wes Welker, Ben Watson, Randy Moss, who beat triple coverage for his first touchdown as a Patriot. Ben Watson, Randy Moss, Ben Watson, Randy Moss, Jabbar Gaffney, Randy Moss, Mike Vrabel, Randy Moss, Dante Stallworth, Ben Watson, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Kyle Brady, Dante Stallworth, Kyle Brady, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Mike Vrabel, Randy Moss off a fake spike, Wes Welker, Randy Moss, Kevin Falk, Randy Moss, Ben Watson, Jabbar Gaffney, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Randy Moss, Jabbar Gaffney, Randy Moss, Ben Watson, Jabbar Gaffney, Wes Welker, Randy Moss in Super Bowl 42, but it was not enough to stop Eli Manning and the Giants offense from snapping that undefeated streak. The next year, 2008, Brady tore his ACL in the first game and missed the entire season. 2009, he returned and threw 3 touchdowns to Ben Watson, Chris Baker, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Ben Watson, Randy Moss, Kevin Falk, Wes Welker, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Sam Aiken, Ben Watson, Randy Moss, Julian Edelman, his first touchdown catch, Randy Moss, Sam Aiken, Ben Watson, Randy Moss, Chris Baker, Randy Moss, Julian Edelman. In 2010, Brady threw 38 touchdowns to Wes Welker, Gronkowski, his first touchdown ever, Wes Welker, Randy Moss, who mossed Revis, Randy Moss, who caught it despite being quadruple teamed, Gronk, Danny Woodhead, Deion Branch, Gronk, Brandon Tate, Aaron Hernandez, Gronkowski, Wes Welker, Hernandez, Deion Branch, Wes Welker, Deion Branch, Brandon Tate, Wes Welker, Hernandez, Gronkowski, Deion Branch, Hernandez, Gronkowski, Algay Crumpler, Gronkowski, Algay Crumpler, Deion Branch. 2011, Brady threw 47 touchdowns to Gronk, Wes Welker, Hernandez, Gronk, Welker, Deion Branch, Welker, Hernandez, Deion Branch, Hernandez, Gronk, Deion Branch, Gronk, Welker, Gronk, Welker, Chad Osucinco, Hernandez, Deion Branch, Gronk, Welker, Gronk, Deion Branch, Gronk, Hernandez, Danny Woodhead, and Hernandez in Super Bowl 46. In 2000, Brady threw 39 touchdowns to Hernandez, Gronk, Edelman, Woodhead, Gronk, Brandon Lloyd, Wes Welker, Hernandez, Gronk, Brandon Lloyd, Gronk, Danny Woodhead, Gronk, Julian Edelman, Gronk, Wes Welker, Shane Vereen, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Hernandez, Brandon Lloyd, Hernandez, Dante Stallworth, Danny Woodhead, Hernandez, Wes Welker, Gronk, Shane Vereen, Brandon Lloyd, Wes Welker. In 2013, Brady threw 26 touchdowns to Julian Edelman, Aaron Dobson, Ken Brell Tompkins, Matthew Mulligan, Ken Brell Tompkins, Aaron Dobson, Danny Amendola, Gronk, Aaron Dobson, Gronkowski, despite being triple teamed, Edelman, Gronk, Shane Vereen, Edelman, Amendola, Michael Hooman, Julian Edelman, Shane Vereen, Julian Edelman. In 2014, Brady threw 43 touchdowns. Gronk, Edelman, LaFell, Tim Wright, Brandon Timms, LaFell, Shane Vereen, Danny Amendola, Gronk, Tim Wright, Brandon LaFell, Gronk, Julian Edelman, Vereen, Brandon LaFell, Gronk, Tim Wright, Brandon LaFell, Gronk, Edelman, Gronk, Danny Amendola, Gronk, LaFell, and James Devlin, Nate Solder, the fullback tight end, and then the lineman tight end. Then Gronk, and then in Super Bowl 49, LaFell, Gronk, Amendola, and Julian Edelman. In 2015, Brady threw 39 touchdowns to Gronk, Scott Chandler, Gronk, Edelman, Gronk, Julian Edelman, Amendola, which was Brady's 400th touchdown, Keyshawn Martin, Dion Lewis, Edelman, Gronk, LeGarrette Blount, Gronk, Danny Amendola, Gronk, Dion Lewis, Edelman, Brandon Bolden, Scott Chandler, Gronk, James White, Gronk, Scott Chandler, Brandon Bolden, James White, Amendola, Scott Chandler, Keyshawn Martin, Gronk, James White, Gronk. 2016, Brady threw 35 touchdowns to Martellus Bennett, James White, Gronk, Amendola, Chris Hogan, Gronk, Edelman, James White, Amendola, Malcolm Mitchell, his first NFL touchdown, Mitchell, Hogan, Martellus Bennett, Chris Hogan, Martellus Bennett, Matt Lengel, James White, Michael Floyd, his first NFL touchdown, Martellus Bennett, Julian Edelman, Dion Lewis, James White, Chris Hogan, Edelman, Amendola, James White, who were in Super Bowl 51. 2017, Brady threw 40 touchdowns to Rex Burkhead, Gronk, Chris Hogan, Hogan, Brandon Cooks, Chris Hogan, Amendola, Chris Hogan, Gronk, Brandon Cooks, James White, Gronk, Rex Burkhead, Wayne Allen, James White, Dion Lewis, Danny Amendola, Brandon Cooks, Gronk, Rex Burkhead, Gronk, Brandon Cooks, James White, Brandon Cooks, Gronk, Dion Lewis, Brandon Cooks, Dion Lewis, James White, Chris Hogan, Gronk, Amendola, and then in Super Bowl 52, Gronk, Chris Hogan, and Gronk. In 2018, Brady threw 31 touchdowns to Gronk, James White, Philip Dorsett, Hogan, James White, Cordell Patterson, Philip Dorsett, James White, Cordell Patterson, James White, Josh Gordon, Brady's 500th touchdown, Julian Edelman, James White, Josh Gordon, Gronk, Josh Gordon, Edelman, Cordell Patterson, Gronk, Chris Hogan, Edelman, James White, Rex Burkhead, Philip Dorsett, Julian Edelman, Philip Dorsett. In 2019, Brady threw 24 touchdowns to Josh Gordon, Dorsett, Antonio Brown, James White, Philip Dorsett, Edelman, Brandon Bolden, Brian Izzo, Philip Dorsett, Julian Edelman, Mohamed Sanu, N'Keal Harry, his first NFL touchdown, James White, Julian Edelman, James White, N'Keal Harry, Matt Lacoste, who became the 76th player to catch a touchdown from Brady, Elandon Roberts, and James White, who caught Brady's final touchdown as a Patriot in Week 17. 2020, Brady threw 50 touchdowns in his first season as a Buck. O.J. Howard was his first touchdown as a Buccaneer. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Cameron Brate, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Scotty Miller, Keyshawn Vaughn, Mike Evans, Tyler Johnson, Gronk, his first touchdown as a Buck. Gronk, Scotty Miller, Chris Godwin, Tyler Johnson, Gronk, Mike Evans, Cameron Brate, Mike Evans, Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Ronald Jones, Mike Evans, his second touchdown in about 18 seconds. Scotty Miller, Gronk, Chris Godwin, AB, his first touchdown as a Buck. Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, AB. Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, AB. Chris Godwin, AB. AB, the first TB12 to AB playoff touchdown. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, playoff Lenny, Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, Gronk, and AB, who both scored touchdowns in Super Bowl 55. 2021, Brady threw 46 touchdowns. Chris Godwin, Gronk, Antonio Brown, Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Brady's fifth touchdown on the day. Gio Bernard, AB, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, AB, Mike Evans, Brady's 600th touchdown. Mike Evans, his third touchdown before the end of the half. Chris Godwin, Gio Bernard, Mike Evans, Cyril Grayson, his first NFL touchdown. Cameron Brate, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, Cameron Brate, Gronk, Mike Evans, Rashad Perryman, OT winner, Cameron Brate, Mike Evans, Cyril Grayson, game-winning touchdown, Le'Veon Bell, Mike Evans, Gronk, Mike Evans, and Mike Evans. 2022. This video is being recorded right after the end of week 14. So far, Brady has 17 touchdowns, and he has thrown them to Mike Evans, Rashad Perriman, Russell Gage, Mike Evans, playoff Lenny, Julio Jones, Cade Otton, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, Co Keft, Cade Otton, Rashad White, and Russell Gage. Brady has thrown 727 touchdowns. How many do you think he'll throw before the end of his career? Comment down below, and thank you for watching to the end of this video.